Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is the first video I'm making since we hit 1,000 subscribers, so firstly thank you for that. I started this channel a year and a half ago, and at that point I thought I was going to do adventure and travel videos, but I just knew that I wanted a platform where I could videographically document all of the things that were happening in my life. It means a lot to me that you guys are invested in seeing the things that I create, so thank you so much for subscribing, and thank you for all of the support. It really means a lot. I was thinking about what sort of information about Ashoka would be useful to you guys, because a lot of people come to my channel to see the Ashoka related videos. And one thing that I think needs to be talked about more, and I'm getting a lot of questions in the comments about, is the econ and finance stream. So I thought in today's video I would talk to you guys a little bit about my take on it. I am an ex-ecofin major. I completed that in 3 years, which is the typical duration for an ecofin major. And then after that I am spending my 4th year ASP degree here, finishing an entrepreneurship minor. So number one is that you can choose between doing a pure econ major, which is an economics major and nothing else, BSc honors, or an economics and finance interdisciplinary major. There are some other interdisciplinary majors that are with econs, but the ones that I'm familiar with are pure econ and ecofin. So a lot of people come into Ashoka thinking they're going to do econ, and then they segue into doing ecofin, and that's what happened with me. I thought I was going to do an economics major and then a psych minor, but around the first year, second sem mark, I realized that an ecofin major equips you with the right kind of coursework that you need to do to sensitize yourself to the business world. I don't want to overwhelm you guys with too much technical information about the courses, and it's also easy to find on Ashoka's website to look at what sort of coursework you have to complete in order to be eligible for the respective diplomas. So I'll try and divide my feedback on the department as a whole into pros and cons, and for the time being I'm approaching econ and ecofin as one bucket, but there are some differences that I'll get into later. So pros for the department and the degrees are that they are extremely engaging. I don't think I've had a single course that wasn't, heavily applied and practical in our knowledge. There was a lot of modeling that we had to do, a lot of papers, reading papers, and the work has never felt like grunt work. I don't think in any of my courses has it ever felt like grunt work. Even the ones that were slightly more formulaic required you to think outside of the box and required you to think about things from a practical perspective. The caveat to that, which I'll get into in the con section, is that because it's so engaging, it's also very challenging. And for context, when I left school, there were 4 to 5 other people in my immediate friends group who were going to different colleges for commerce and things like that, econ. And when we would corroborate over the summer on what we had been learning, it felt like we were doing master's level material. Compared to the rest of the country, they do make you work a lot more than some of the other econ majors. But it's a give or take. You're also working on really engaging, refreshing material, so it's a double-edged sword. The other thing I really like about the degree is that it's incredibly multifaceted, and I guess this goes for all departments, but you have the option to navigate and sort of curate your degree towards the second half. I'll say that this is less true for econ than the other majors here at Ashoka, but for econ as a subject, you can do everything from gender econ to labor econ, development economics to finance courses. So there's a lot of really interesting sort of permutations and combinations of coursework that you can take to tailor yourself to a specific kind of work environment that you want to be in, or a specific field of research that you want to explore. So I find that very useful. And the last thing is, because I get questions on this in the comments, packages are great. Typically when consulting firms come here and banking firms come here, they pay, and this is something I've heard very informally from my internships and stuff, they pay something called an Ashoka Tax, which is the sort of padding on your package that is offered only to Ashoka students because the degree is really good and they know that students have been kind of grilled throughout their college life academically. So packages are also, I would say, really good, and they're only getting better. Again, Ashoka is only 7 years old, and for the amount of time it's been here proportionately, I think we're doing really well. So that's my take on the packages. Con number one is that, like I said earlier, it is cutthroat and it is not easy to get grades in a lot of courses. A lot of them, even if you really slog and learn formulas and equations and things like that, I have found that some of the coursework takes a good sense of judgment, and it's not a cruise, and it requires so many different types of thinking and the different types of courses we do, that one style of thinking and applying your mind is not going to get you super far. You have to be willing to pivot, and you have to be flexible, and you have to have stamina to sit through all of those courses. It can feel kind of dry when you hear about the other majors and what they're doing and the kind of coursework they're involved in, but if you can stick it through, I think it's really nice towards the end and after your prerequisites are done. Another thing that I have felt is that the EcoFin degree is what is sort of pitched to us as a degree that is useful for students that want to get into business and want to get into the corporate world, which is why most of the people that sit for consulting jobs and those placements at the end of their degree are EcoFin students. However, I feel like the EcoFin department and degree by itself is not enough, and not the best in terms of what Ashoka offers to sensitize you to the corporate world. And that is something I realized after I took my first entrepreneurship course, because that's when I sort of pieced together entrepreneurship is not just about starting and building your own company. The department gives you a really, really wonderful set of courses with industry leaders that sensitize you to the corporate world, basically. And I find that that gap has yet to be filled with the EcoFin degree. We need to have a lot more of the business and corporate side of things into our Fin credits that we're allowed to take. And I think the best way to do that will be to cross-list a lot of our entre courses with finance courses. But until that happens, just a caveat that you can do EcoFin and you're better off doing EcoFin if you want to get corporate jobs, but in terms of actual experience, you are much better off flanking that with an entrepreneurship minor than without. Because this semester itself, I'm taking capital markets, business analysis and strategy, branding and consumer behavior, accounting and financial statements, and all of those things are not in the finance department, they're in the entre department. I think the last con that I have is that, and this is something I talked about earlier in terms of how competitive it is that you kind of miss out on Ashoka's artsiness. And it is right now it's a liberal arts institution, right? And they're really planning on flanking that with some science-heavy colleges, but some of Ashoka's most valuable proposition to its students is kind of the artsiness and liberal way of thinking. And you really do start to explore that in your third year when you choose your electives. But early on, it's very hard to feel that side of Ashoka in the econ department. So if you're comparing yourself to majors from other departments, your coursework might not seem as akin to what is Ashoka's brand. So if that's something that's important to you, and if you're on the fence, it's worth thinking about. Those are my pros and cons. I'm gonna put them into a table here because I've talked a lot. But overall, I think it's one of the best degrees for econ in the country. And I can only imagine, I know I'm biased because I'm from Ashoka, but I've also sort of seen the worst of the department, and I still think that it is an extremely engaging offering. And if you're somebody who's seriously considering economics or economics and finance, this is the place to go. The last thing I kind of want to end with is what I think a student who plans on taking EcoFin, sort of the core personality traits that I think are in alignment with what they ask of you. And I'm telling you this not because there is a typecast or archetype for the EcoFin department, but because I was not a lot of these things when I was in school. When I was in my first year and second year and third year. And I think it cost me for a while until I was able to sort of build those personality traits. Number one is that it is good for people who have an analytical way of looking at things and an appreciation for the math behind things. Because you do a lot of math, and a lot of the decision making that happens in econ and a lot of the analysis and inference is very formulaic. So if you're somebody who has an appreciation for that, things will probably fall into place a little bit quicker. I see that a lot of people who can look at a decision, whether that's a government decision or a personal individual decision, and they can say there is a compelling case for both sides of this equation. You'll be able to make peace with how mathematical some of the decision making from an economic point of view can be. The last thing that I think is a good trait to have for someone in the econ department is just stamina. I think being resilient can take you a long way, because on those days that you're memorizing equations for an exam and your friends are writing really interesting papers, that's what's going to get you through your first year and second year until you can start doing those electives, and it gets really good from that point onwards. And the prereqs are really great too, don't get me wrong, it's just that they take a little bit of stamina. So if these are traits that you guys think are somewhat representative of you, or traits that you're interested in building, because I think all of these things are things that you can build over time, the econ department might be a really good fit for you. I thought this would be helpful from that point of view. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe and like and comment for what you'd like to see next. Thank you so much for spending time with me, and as always, see you in the next video. Bye.